How's it going, everybody? Welcome again to the Live Life Now podcast. I am Brian, and thank you for coming along this little journey with me going through all types of tips that I've learned along the way, just memories, just these different experiences, and kind of just chatting, making it up as I go here. I'm not, worrying about focusing on notes or anything specific, just having like a campfire chat type of situation here, I guess. Anyways, today's topic is about how I personally write songs and poems. First thing I should say is that I have released a book of my songs and poems. It's over 500 poems, and some of them are lyrics, obviously, to song. Many of them are lyrics to songs, but just kind of compiled my life's work of songs and poems and released a book called Subliminal Messages, My Life in Lyrics and Poetry. And you can find that on blurb.com. I'm including a bunch of links in the video description, and there's a link to my blurb.com page there. And at that point, you can buy it or, do like a preview of it even online. You can read a bunch. So how do I do it? What do I do? First thing I want to say is there is no one right way to do anything when it comes to most creative things, especially when writing lyrics or poetry or songs in general. This is also a focus on songwriting here. I've actually spoken about being in bands and playing performances and recording songs, but I haven't actually taken the time to speak about how I personally write the songs. So that is what this episode is about. So first of all, I want to start with, I've done it pretty much every single way you could imagine. Typically though, if we just go into like what is the most common way that I would personally do it, start with the music. There's numerous ways to go about it. Usually most songs that I write start with a guitar, often an acoustic guitar, just playing song ideas, just playing anything really, not trying to limit myself or assume something's good or bad, just keep playing for fun. Sometimes I like to kind of not overly play guitar all the time, and I just kind of come to it when I'm feeling a certain emotion or something, or just feeling like, hey, I haven't picked up the guitar in a while. And oftentimes some of the best things I come up with happen nearly immediately. It'll just come out of me, like the ideas just fly out of me. And it's really important in those moments that I record the ideas down, because it's super easy to forget them and have a great idea and, well, what chord was that, or what note, or whatever, and then it's gone forever. So the way I typically do it is, if I come up with something I like, I flesh it out briefly and immediately record it before it feels stale, before I forget it, and just kind of get something to work off of later should I forget it. So when it comes to songwriting, it'll start with that, an idea. It could also start not just with like a guitar part. I have had a vocal idea that just came to mind. Then I'll record a wild recording with me humming and making all sorts of weird noises into my phone and just recording that. And at first listen, you'd be like, what is this craziness? But to me, it's helping me remember a melody, or remember a change in notes from, like maybe a low note to a high note and back to another note, whatever the case may be. I think it's super key. Number one tip I have is write down or record down whatever you have as soon as you have it, because I've had so many ideas over the years that I lost because I didn't immediately do something about them. But I'm usually really good about it, so that doesn't happen very often. And often when it does happen, I'm not overly bummed, unless it was something I was really excited about, because I know I'm going to come up with a million other ideas. I have written or co-written over 250 something songs at this point, original songs. Oftentimes when I am, for me to consider it an official song, let me be clear what an official song is. It is a song with music and lyrics. I have tons of ideas that are instrumentals that do not have lyrics. I could arguably say those are complete ideas too, and they're just instrumental songs. But the way I keep track of my records, those are instrumentals or jams or something. They're ideas that are not fully fleshed out. They're good, often ideas. They're often good. They might even have like a verse, a chorus, transitions, a solo. They may have a bunch of stuff to them, but until I put some type of lyrics with it, it's not a full song for me personally. But to each their own. How you determine what counts as a song is up to you. I mean, I wouldn't tell anybody otherwise. So, like I mentioned, I typically start with the music. I have started with the lyrics first. Usually those ideas you are a little tougher because it's like you're doing it backwards, for at least the way I feel about it. What I mean by backwards is that it's like you're trying to fit the music to the words, and it's like a puzzle that already has some pieces in, and now you got to find a way to combine other things that may not come as naturally to fit those words. It can go well, though. I'm not saying it can't. It's just I feel like those songs that I've done where I did the lyrics first, they often don't become my favorites because they don't have like a flow to them in the same way, the way that I like to create. Also, I must mention that I've had ideas where I've had times when I just didn't have an instrument around to try them out, and I didn't really have like at the time I wasn't just like recording wild noises in the phone all the time. There's different things that I've done. I've used apps such as GarageBand, where a lot of built-in instruments are in there. Basically, you are taking from a database that these apps have that have numerous types of instruments in them, and these digital instruments are basically more like button pushing and sliding across your phone to make the notes play and the instruments play digitally. I did some of that, especially around maybe 2018 or so. I did come up with a couple songs that way without a proper instrument, just 100% on the phone. Typically not the way I do it, but what's kind of cool about that is I sometimes came up with cool beats that I definitely couldn't have done in the same way with the guitar or just playing drums or even with piano or something. And you can put in some like very odd well, not odd, but like you're not your common instruments for the United States, let's say. Maybe some like Asian pipe or flutes or things in there, or like weird percussion instrument. Once again, not weird, just not your common everyday type of instruments for the US. And it's very cool because it's like you're able to blend different cultural sounds and just like kind of be different and unique. I mean, just yes, you're using from a platform where it's a bunch of pre-built ideas, kind of just you figure out in what combination or order you want to use them or not use them. But it is different. It is a different. I feel like when I've written like that, where I'm just kind of making beats and adding layers to things and then coming up with the words versus, playing alongside with the guitar while writing the words. It is different. I wrote a rap song like that once. I've done a lot of more electronic style music that way. And it does expand the type of songs that I've done. So it's not all just, guitar rock based. I've done a lot of different styles of songs, and some of them were naturally, some were not. I had an idea like, hey, I haven't done a song kind of like this before, and just trying things. So I've tried pretty much nearly every genre of music you can think of, even if it was just kind of for like a instrumental or for a jam or something. Why not? Why limit yourself? I'm big on experiences, and I think it's ideal to try different things. Why not be creative in as many different ways as possible? Use different mediums available to you. I've played drums over the years since I was in middle school and on and off from there. I have my own drum set at this point, played drums on my own album. A cool drum idea could happen. Record that down too. That could be the initial beat for a song idea. I've had ideas come to me in my head where I had zero instruments, where I just was like hearing something. And it's weird because by the time I finally got an instrument to actually play it, sometimes it didn't match up with the way I heard it in my head now. And I had to alter things to make it work. So there's different things like that that I've tried or done. And a lot of times it depends on where you are in the moment when you come up with the idea. Also, another cool thing is not to come up with an idea by yourself. I've had times where I've played with a drummer and I'm playing guitar and they'll do like a cool drum beat and I build something off of their drum beat that I probably wouldn't have come up with in the same way had they not played that exact drum beat. And then that point of that like spark of creativity, I'm able to run with that and make it something different and make it my own and, you know, create my own original idea off of the spark of somebody else's creativity or playing. So that's definitely key. I say it's good to try to learn multiple instruments. I would not fully rely on one thing because there's a certain sound that you're going to get out of that instrument that you're going to always have. Now, granted, can you play the instrument differently? Can you play different notes, different chords? Can you play in different octaves, different keys? Whatever you want to say, major, minors, of course, you can do all of that. But ultimately, there is a limit on how many combinations are out there. Sure, can you strum differently? Can you do a million different things differently to, you know, make it different from one another? It could be the same exact chords, but a different vocal melody and sound completely different. So sometimes you'll be like, you know, you'll play something like, hey, this reminds me of some other song that already exists. Well, if you don't do the vocal melody the same, there's a good chance most people won't even know it's the same notes and chords because it'll sound so different vocally that it'll be its own thing, completely separate and unique from a popular song that people already know. So just because it's all kind of been done before doesn't mean that, like, hey, why am I even trying? Everything's been done. It's not been done in the way that you play. Everybody's got a bit of their unique take on the way they play and their musical abilities, and those things can grow over time. And you can get better at the instrument over time. You can get better vocally. You can learn technique. You can learn better how to preserve your voice. There's a lot of different things that can be done that change, even just growing old. Sometimes your voice will change as you get older. Everything, like there's so many intricate details that go into things. You know, I could record the same exact song today and then tomorrow, and it might not sound exactly the same just because in that moment it came out a little differently than it did, even though it's the same exact song, same exact person playing it, even if it's something I personally wrote, I might play it just slightly differently, slightly faster or slower, slight little arpeggios or something that I added to one and not the other. You know, even the tuning if you don't have the tuning just right, there can be a little off tuning, off timing. I can get out of beat. Just, you know, giving a lot of examples of how the little variances can make something actually quite different and unique, and even kind of like add its own like style and groove to something. Even just like your beats per minute, one beat per minute over time, if it's played long enough, will sound dramatically separate from where it started versus the other beat per minute. Like there's so many layers to stuff, I guess, is what I'm ultimately coming down to for people that don't know music. In regards to poems, the way I write poems is a little different than songs because with poems, obviously, I'm not typically accompanying poems with music. And if I am putting poems with music, then they ultimately, I consider them as a song at that point. But when I'm making poems or I'm making lyrics, so I typically do the music first. But when I'm writing lyrics, I often don't go in with a specific idea in mind. I can write like that, and I have written like that, and it's sometimes a good idea, especially if you're trying to tell like a story. Don't do you want something specific to what you say. But I kind of like writing lyrics in an abstract way that you can interpret with multiple meanings or sayings, or it can be taken out of context and you can make up your own context for. It's just kind of like not always spell out exactly what I mean by something. Are there times that I'm very literal in what I've said and things? Of course. But it doesn't mean that it has to be that way. Also, a lot of people write from personal experience. I definitely have, or personal feeling, or what I'm feeling in the moment. Do I always write from personal experience? No. And most songwriters don't. Most songwriters do, you know, use their personal experiences for inspiration and probably do write a lot of real things. And many times they are talking about something very specific about their personal lives. But sometimes just the human condition is more what I'm talking about, more than my personal situation. I may be talking about the struggles of something that I can't fully relate to, but I can empathize with what those different types of people and different cultures and different things are going through. It doesn't make it any less authentic to what I'm trying to say. It still matters. It's still relevant, and nobody should be telling you this is the only way to do these things. I think it's ideal that you try it every single way you can think of. Hey, you want to write a song about something specific and write a specific story about it? Great, do it. Maybe that's your favorite way to write. Or you want to write something very abstract and doesn't make sense at all, and it's not even grammatically correct in a lot of cases, and it's very just vague and out there. That's cool too. You can go the extremes of it, or you can go anything in between. You don't always have to be one thing or the other. Also, a lot of times when I write lyrics, even if I am being specific about something or something along those lines, I am talking about oftentimes multiple subjects from line to line. I usually will do like a set of like 2 or 4 lines at a time. And then I may not think of anything cool for a while. And then I come back to it later. And then I'm thinking of a completely different subject, but it all gets composed into one song. So even in the times when I've tried to write something specific, or I have moments that something is specific to me or to an idea that I have, even if it's not about me, it doesn't mean that the whole song is only about one thing. This verse may be about something completely different from the chorus, or the first verse may be about something completely different from the second verse, or whatever. So I think it's okay to write like that. Some people, try to sit down and write it all at once. And I think that's obviously great and ideal, but it doesn't always come to me that easily. Sometimes it takes time to come up with lyrics. Sometimes that happens in a few minutes. Sometimes it takes a few weeks to get something the way I like it. And maybe I need to tweak certain words so that the amount of syllables matches with the song that I'm writing. Or I don't want to say things in a similar way to something I've already written in the past. And so I might change the vocabulary that I'm using so that it's a little different, or it doesn't remind me of something that I've already done. And I think that's where I get a little pickier. It's not so much for me personally that I think something's a good or a bad idea. Of course, I know when I feel a good or a bad idea, but I won't necessarily stop playing a so-so idea just because I'm like, oh, this isn't great. I think it's all important to document and write. But when I do kind of catch myself like stopping myself and like being a little bit like critiquing myself, is when it reminds me of something I've already said or done in previous songs or poems. So what can you take away from all this information I'm giving you? Number 1, try all the different types of styles out there when it comes to writing. My personal recommendation is, if you're writing a song, start with the music and build the lyrics later. There's a lot of really dumb lyrics out there on a lot of great songs, and people forget how dumb the lyrics are because the song and the music is so good on its own that it doesn't matter what you say to it. Meanwhile, there are songs out there that are not great musically all the time, or they're average musically, let's say, but they have lyrics that captivate you, that make you feel something, even if it's not something specifically that you've been through personally, or maybe that's not even the way that the lyricist interpreted you to understand that, or feel that specific line, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about the way you receive it, and not always the way that the writer was trying to convey it. I think that's what's cool about it. We're all different. We have universal emotions and feelings with a lot of things, but it doesn't mean that we don't sometimes take things from songs like or movies or any type of entertainment and relate them to our personal experiences in a specific way that somebody else may, relate to their personal life in a very completely different way. And I think that's the art of, at least for me, being a little more abstract and vague, to give people more of an opportunity to say, this is what I think it's about, or this is what this makes me feel, versus like ramming it down their throat to say, this is what I want you to hear, and this is what I'm telling you this is about. I think all of it's valid, though, and I think you should try all of these ideas, and I certainly have. So I'm not discounting any of them. I'm just kind of giving you my personal preferences. In regards to poems, I think you should just write as much as you possibly can. There's no limit on how many lines you can write. I had times where I wrote and wrote and wrote on and off for hours. And then I come back the next day and I'm like, man, a lot of this is really dumb or bad. Fine. Delete those lines. Pick out the good stuff in there. For all the bad lines you may not like, you may have even if you just have 20 or 30% of the lines be something that you've like, well, this is pretty good, or I could use this. Great. That's still a success. Also, you can, with lyrics, and I certainly have, and a lot of famous musicians do the same technique. You can collage lyrics. So you may have written a bunch of stuff about something, even if it's specific, abstract, anything in between. But hey, I need a line that matches with this one. And a lot of songs rhyme. And so you might be like, well, this isn't exactly what I was thinking about writing about, but this fits really good. And it sounds really good when I say it right after this other line. So those type of things need to be considered too. Same thing with poems. Maybe even if there's not music, there's just a smoothness to the way that line sounds that you're like, well, even though it may change the way people interpret it a little bit differently from the way you're hoping they would interpret it, it sounds more powerful that way. Or it fits within the amount of syllables, or it rhymes nicely. And that's a very important topic to mention too. Not everything has to rhyme. Not everything should rhyme. Things can also be completely different, not even be remotely close to rhyming. Or you can rhyme words that are actually not even really rhyme, but get words that sound kind of similar or nice next to each other at the end of sentences. And they don't always have to rhyme if it just flows right. So I often write rhyming type of lyrics. I think there's something in most of our, I don't know, in our psyche or whatever you want to call it, that likes to hear things that sound like a beginning and an end. And a rhyme gives it like a bit more of a completeness to it, like where, I'm not saying to rhyme hat and bat necessarily, but, there is something like when you say those words from one line to the next, it's like there's a clear period at the end of that, because now the rhyming word is often the last word of the sentence. And so, like, okay, cool. They said that. Now they said this. It's almost like a typewriter. Like you're just going across. Okay, next line, so on, and next line. I know I'm rambling a little bit on this, but I just want to like kind of get the point across is there's no perfect way. Find the way that you like. Find the way that works best for the way you like to create. And try the opposite of that too. You know what I mean? You never know. I've enjoyed writing songs in all different ways and with all different instruments and with, on my computer, on the phone, with actual proper instruments like guitars, electric guitars, bass, acoustic, piano, keyboards, various percussion instruments, whatever. I've tried them all, and I like that I've tried them all, because it doesn't come out the same way. You could be playing the same exact notes, but on a different instrument, and it's going to sound different. And you can add your own inflections to it, through the different instruments. So what I would say is just write and create a lot. Don't stop yourself. Like, don't feel like, oh, this isn't good. I'm going to, no, throw this away. No, keep going. fight through those thoughts. They're often just insecurities. Sure, there may be times when it's not very good, but maybe that next line will be. So if you cut yourself off too early, you never get to that other line or that other part of the music or whatever that you actually would have liked, because you were so busy judging and stopping every single line and be like, no, that one should be better, or this isn't that good. You can always edit later. The editing, like for a book, do you think the authors just write that out first try and like, hey, we're good? Obviously not. That's why they have rough drafts. Your songwriting and your lyric writing should also potentially have rough drafts, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not a good writer or lyricist or poet. It just means that, you know what, it's like carving it or something. You gotta carve out the little details to it, and once you get the basics down, everything else is just editing and building on what you've already started. And it's a lot easier to get a solid foundation than just go down line by line and never actually get anything done. I've met people that are amazing musicians or amazing writers, but they're so in their head that they think that nothing they write is good, or never, maybe not, it might be good, but it's never good enough. It always could be better. And it's like, once you start doing that to yourself, those are limiting beliefs, and those limiting beliefs are going to stop you, not only for songwriting and poems and lyrics, but just generally in life. If I had thought and accepted limiting beliefs as fact, there's no way I would have done even half the stuff I've accomplished in my life. And there's no way that I would continue to want to accomplish things, because I would already have been my own worst critic, my own worst judge. And there's no reason for that. Society is already giving enough stuff and enough unwanted feedback through social media, through, whatever. So you don't need to do that to yourself. Just get it out there. Creativity is supposed to be fun, especially if it's not your job and it's just a hobby. This is not supposed to be overly analyzed and overthought. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the process of creating, the process of writing. That's what I do. And sometimes amazing things happen. It's because I don't get in my own way. I don't stop myself from letting them happen. So I hope that gives a little bit of thought and insight. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you so much. Have a great day.